hot tea. Have hot tea. Do you want a hot tea?
Sleepy time tea.
It's not sleepy time tea.
All right, 7 o'clock. All right, pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do roll call. Alderman Old.
Here.
Alderman Bell.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Wilcart.
Here.
Alderman Plank.
Here.
Alderman Lewis.
Here.
I'll get a motion to approve of March 7th, 2023 meeting minutes, please.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to special items, Ashland Betterment Coalition. Oh, Lauren, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Ashland Betterment Coalition, Izzy?
Hello, I'm back again with the Ashland Betterment Coalition, and this evening we have come to talk a little bit more about why we want to be put on your guys' budget for this upcoming fiscal year. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Ashland Betterment Coalition. I'm Izzy Smith, Vice President. We're an organization that has been working tirelessly to use existing educational and economic resources as well as create new opportunities to foster sustainable economic growth within our district. As a member of the coalition, I can attest to the significant impact that our programs and initiatives are making. We are gaining volunteers weekly and have a strong workforce to improve the area we serve, which we presented previously, and that is McDonald's down to Trail Boss, down Main Street, and at Main Street go back up Henry Clay to touch Broadway again. We are currently facing a critical issue that requires your attention and support. As a nonprofit organization, we rely on volunteers, sponsorships, donations, fundraisers, and grants to fund our work. Unfortunately, our resources are limited, and it has taken over a year to have finally gotten off our feet and able to support the basic needs of our organization, as well as begin a small improvement project, which is the planters that you guys have probably been seeing and hearing about. We are here today to request funding from the city to be allocated in the budget. We believe that our work is not only beneficial to the community, but it also aligns with the city's goals of promoting economic development and community engagement. The city initially helped establish a group and fund the services in consultation from Missouri Main Street. Our group has proved to successfully engage with the community and fundraise to begin our projects, but we still need your support and funding assistance in order to help the group continue to succeed. As an organization, we have determined that the allocated city funds are not sustainable to fund a paid position that was originally intended whenever you guys previously approved the funds to be set aside for the Ashland Betterment Coalition. We would like to ask for funds to continue being in compliance with Missouri Main Street, the grant we received, the state requirements for a 501c3 organization, and larger projects that the community wants to see. Currently, we still need to fund board liability insurance. We need to update our bylaws and obtain tax support because we have yet to file taxes, and we do believe that that will need to be done this year. And those are just a few housekeeping tasks that still need completed. From the community feedback, we have learned that people like to see improvements such as sidewalks, building facade, more appealing public spaces, more family-friendly events, better parking, and other mentions. You can find our immediate plan of action in the drafted strategic plan, which we'll hand out once I'm kind of done with this. More city funding will allow us to answer community demands to improve our district through business support and engagement as well as projects. In addition to projects like planters, the organization is working on nurturing partnership between the Southern Boone Economic Development Council, Chamber, and City. Lately, we've helped a new business owner connect with the city to comply with business licensing. Soon, we'll be running a social media campaign to educate our community members about the upcoming sales tax issue. Also, through looking at grant opportunities for ourselves, we have shared fitting grant opportunities with other groups and businesses in the community. Having this relationship might offer future opportunities to hire shared staff in other projects to come, hence why we've taken that out of asking that from the city. The Ashland Betterment Coalition's initiatives have contributed to the growth and success of our local economy. Our efforts are to support small businesses, and we hope to attract new investment. In addition, our community events have helped to boost awareness and promote Ashland and its existing businesses, ultimately resulting in an improved community relationship. Therefore, we urge the city to consider allocating the funds to support the Ashland Betterment Coalition. With your support, we can continue to make a positive impact on our community and ensure that Ashland remains a vibrant and thriving place to live, work, and play. In conclusion, we thank you for your consideration and support of the Ashland Betterment Coalition. We believe that by working together, we can create a brighter future for our community. Before we complete our requests, we would like to share and review our strategic plan and annual report to assist in your decisions.
Thank you.
So Brittany's handing that out. This is a draft, and we say that's a draft because many of these projects and things in here have been discussed and approved by the board, but we're trying to stay flexible for other suggestions from the community. And sometimes, as you guys know, priority comes to whatever is most needed at the moment. So being the new group that can kind of fill the holes that Chamber, Economic Development, and City leaves, we're trying to stay flexible with our projects ahead. The forefront of projects is planters. We are looking to have a planter location in front of any event here within the next month or so. We've partnered with the Ag Department and FFA at the school to get those funds started, and they've actually almost completed the first planter. That's going to kind of be our trial. And Ms. Hammett is working to see if she can find a student to be dedicated to actually caring for that planter, so we don't have to even disperse the role of care for those. So we're working towards that, but they received a grant to support the materials of that. And after our fundraiser last week, as the Ashland Betterment Coalition, we're going to be able to support additional planters as well as the materials for the plans to get started. Once we have the final costs, we plan to allow businesses to immediately adopt the same planter design so that we can hopefully have more than one more quickly throughout our downtown area. Do you guys have any questions for me to be discussed?
I've got a recommendation. Actually, I have a couple.
Okay.
You mentioned filing taxes. I think this will be the first year you have to file, correct? I have some experience with this because of the 501c3 that I put together for the Ashland Skate Park Association. I think all you have to do is file a 900N
Okay.
for that, but I could be wrong. Just maybe looking at that 900N is the name of the form. It's real easy to fill out. Also, you mentioned bylaws. I think people may be tempted to maybe hire an attorney and spend a lot of money on investment in that, but I would recommend just going online because you can get a set of bylaws put together for your organization pretty easy for a minimal cost, just by answering just a few questions online.
So to clarify, we do have bylaws in place. This group and organization was established prior to some city changes, so we just have some of the incorrect names and references in there. So again, should be fairly simple to change, but because it's established, we're probably going to have to go through a legal party to get that corrected.
So the funds that you're asking the city to allocate, what specifically do you see? Because originally we had talked about funding the position half-time, so in lieu of doing that, what specific plans would you have for those funds?
So still the housekeeping items that we have, for the most part, our funds so far have been coming from the volunteers donating directly. So we have sponsored at least 4 conference attendance that is required to be in compliance with Missouri Main Street and the grants that basically pays for their service. So we would prefer to not be spending funds on something we didn't necessarily agree to, just kind of stepped into, so that the city could help finish out that relationship so that we could reassess. That is something we're open to. We do feel that Missouri Main Street's relationship and advice has been helpful, but do want to consider other avenues once we complete that. But we're not 100% sure and can't get a solid answer on what happens if we do not comply. And that would be very unfortunate if the city has to pay back the money from the grant or something of that nature. We also would hope to be able to partner more closely with the city on a project like sidewalks or something like that, where we can fundraise our partner with the city and put those funds together more as a match or a grant opportunity, as opposed to just handing over the money and hoping it goes to the correct place for disbursement.
Any questions?
What kind of money are we talking about here? I mean, is it what was laid out previously, or is there a different number? Do you have a?
I do not believe that the amount that was previously laid out would be necessary. We moved away from looking at a higher position because, again, we couldn't even compile enough numbers to stay above water for ourselves without begging for donations or sponsorships. So trying to feed someone's salary and family was not ideal once the city money was expended, basically. So we would be hoping for funds to keep our housekeeping under control as far as state filings, attending conferences, and maybe some sort of funds to help continue improving our project so that every single thing we do doesn't take us to $0 to have to restart on funding.
Do you have any idea of how much the registration fees are for the conferences that you guys attend?
They have been $150 to $300 a piece. So more than likely, based on the quick estimate, we're looking at $5,000 or less. That would be a helpful donation and hand to us that I feel would be reasonable for the city to support until, again, we get some more projects going and have a solid idea on the costs of those projects and how the city can help.
Is there anything in the budget right now?
So the money that was previously allocated for this fiscal year, because there was no plan presented to, for that formula, it was never, I mean, it was initially approved in this year's budget, but then when no one came back to show a plan on how those funds would be allocated or supported, then we took it out.
When it was it?
35,000.
Oh, okay.
It was 35,000 to come out of service agreements for this fiscal year. And that's before Kyle came into place, that's what Tony had approved and allotted. But my understanding from him before he left was because there was no plan of action put into place on how this person was going to perform and where they were going to perform at, and then the space available. There was no space available in this building after we moved in, as we originally, I guess they originally anticipated there would be space. He removed it.
For like an actual position?
Yeah, for an actual position, because one of the offices in the administration area was to go for that part-time person. But when the remodel was completed, all the office space was taken up with city staff. And then there was supposed to be a presentation given as far as how those funds would be allocated. So my recommendation, Izzy, and I mean, I'm just speaking on don't wanna speak for the board, but my recommendation is that for this fiscal year, so the preliminary budget is done for this fiscal year, coming up May 1st. We will do the first reading of the budget, the first meeting in April, and we'll do the final reading, the second meeting in April. Before the second reading in April, it would be good to have a solid number.
Okay.
And then not just a solid number, but have it allocated out as far as it's gonna go to these expenses, so have the expenses listed out. Not only is that good business for us, because we do try to be transparent in our budget, if you've reviewed it, I mean, we have all of our revenues and expenses are pretty much lined out. I would say that this would have to go under administrative general for service agreements. I mean, there's no really other place for it to go. It's going to decrease, the amount will decrease what the preliminary budget is right now as far as surplus in that fund. So that's something that they're gonna have to look at. But if you could come back with email me and give me a solid amount and list out all the expenses, then when we do the first reading, hopefully maybe before the first reading of the budget and the first reading in April, then we can get a resolution taken under consideration, that information disseminated to the board and to the mayor so they can review it before that meeting, and then maybe come back and talk before I go into the preliminary budget, again, just to line out those expenses, and then this is what we plan on doing with it. Because if the original amount of $35,000 is not something that's not doable. But to cover your expenses of things that you've listed off, I think that that's something that for review and consideration, we can plug it in and we can see how it looks.
Okay, and again, we're not asking for a handout because we understand we have to prove ourselves and it's hard to allocate in a public budget $35,000 for something you don't know if it's gonna work or not. So that's why we've kind of reassessed and come back with something more reasonable for the group to help us stay on our feet and actually put our money towards projects and things the community sees and enjoys. So I think that's something that we can definitely work towards and complete prior to the second April budget.
Yeah, so
And I do think it is very important that we remain in compliance with that grant so that we don't end up having to pay it back or whatever. We need to,
And that is a
utilize
question.
that resource and stay
Right,
compliant
that's
with
a
that.
question that has been asked multiple times, of course, whenever you have a business, essentially, they don't give a super solid answer because, why would they? But, honestly, we do have some different paperwork, things like that we can convey to you guys. If someone wants to dig through it and see if they can find a better answer, then maybe, then we're happy to share that. But we also agree that it's important and we'll do, obviously, we've been doing everything we can to stay compliant up to this point, so.
If you don't have the staff person, are you compliant? I mean, do you just need the $5,000 to be compliant? Or what do you need to be compliant?
There's no requirement for a hired position.
Because
that
essentially, you didn't get cash from them, it was just in-kind services.
Correct, yeah.
You're
So-
just funding their organization is what you're doing.
Well,
Yes,
we are,
I guess,
paying
that
the
was agreed to prior, which is why I'm saying I think it's important that we finish out those services and really take into consideration what the next steps look like, but until then, stay in agreement with what was previously done.
In terms of what she's asking for, I mean, I think the city would look for an itemized, I mean, what you spent last year is a good place to start, obviously. I don't imagine you have 1 million transactions, you're not paying all that many bills.
No.
Right. So.
You'll find that information in the annual report from last year about what we actually spent last year as an organization, what came out of our reparations account. The only thing that isn't included in that is direct donations from board members who made it possible for us to go to those conferences.
And as, you know, she said, a lot of that's gonna be inclined, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we also, I mean, last year we were still trying to establish a bank account and things like that we are even missing some of that stuff because we had donors pay out of pocket directly to the Missouri Main Street to make these things happen. So, again, that's something we can estimate based on, say, 6 months of transactions, but, won't be 100%, so.
I don't think anybody expects it to be 100%, but in fairness to the board, I think that it would be, and in fairness to the city as far as our disclosure as being partnered with this. And we have certain requirements that we have to comply with if we're partnering with you for this as far as our financial audits are concerned. So, agreed that we need to not be responsible for paying Main Street back for anything as far as that grant is concerned. But if you could just get something maybe to me before the first meeting in April, as far as, a projected dollar amount and then what expenses you're gonna use that projected dollar amount on. We can plug it into the preliminary budget. We can, have a resolution in place, because we'll have to have a resolution to grant those funds. And then that will give them time to digest and review it, and ask any other questions of you that they may have, if that sounds fair.
Just a couple of other suggestions too, like where these Main Street organizations have stood up in other communities, most of the time the businesses that are like in the district or like close by would pay like an annual set of dues. And I know like here the chamber dues are like nothing, right? They're like what, $25 or something.
Depends on the business size.
Yeah, so like, I mean, we have some bigger businesses now in town, and so sometimes it's done by employee count or dollar amount or whatever, but it wouldn't be unreasonable to ask people for a couple $100 a year, to join. And then I know like in other locations as well, if like you have the flowers, right, then, like obviously if I have a business somewhere else and I pay the florist, then I'm paying for the flowers. So if you're paying for the flowers and stuff, they would pay more because they're getting the benefit of the flowers right in front of their business and they're not having to fund that themselves. So a lot of times the folks that get the full benefit of wherever that flower thing's gonna be would contribute a little bit extra. So I would like to see some, contributions from the people that are benefiting. The other thing was, I know we stood up, it's been 2 years ago now that we stood up Ashland Community Club, and it's been doing that father-daughter dance. And the idea originally was to split the money between community organizations. No one really came forward, so we've just been cutting the check to the PTA. I think we've cleared $5,000 in 2 years in profit. And so we've just been writing the check out. And I think, so looking at other organizations to partner with, that then you could clear some additional money. I think the idea was that it would split between the school and other worthy organizations. So open to a conversation about, ways that you can partner with other folks to try to just get a little bit of bump besides just government money would be good, I think.
Absolutely, and that is.
I really don't wanna do it, but if you wanted to help me with it, I would be.
And then, so we are still, like I said, we're very flexible in what we're looking at doing fundraiser project-wise, because we want to take advantage of things that are established and maybe fizzled out, like say the 4th of July parade that we adopted, things like that have already been established. So the upfront legwork on if it works or not is already done, and we can be more beneficial for other groups. And that's also why we're trying to create a closer relationship with Chamber and Economic Development, mostly because they have similar goals, but because we can lean on them for those membership dues, et cetera, which we are starting conversation about finding some way to partner and make that more beneficial for everybody and less time spent.
No, the trivia night was awesome,
It
so
was.
congrats on the
Thank you.
success so far.
Thank
It's really good.
Anything further?
One more quick question. Go ahead. Can you speak to what your vision is with the roundabouts? Or maybe you only have purview over maybe one of the three, I'm not sure, but as far as planters and things like that?
So we have discussed expanding our planter design to being something in the roundabouts, for the roundabouts related to Ashland, whether that becomes a memorial or statue or something of that nature. Expense has been something that has been very deterring on looking any further into that, because you have to do one thing before you can do two. And secondly, just some of the MoDOT restrictions and things that we would run into, knowing that we had some time before we could carry something like that out, is part of the reason why we just kind of pumped the brakes on that. But if that's something the city would be interested, again, in allocating funds towards, so that we could get that moving quickly and add some curb appeal to that, that's definitely something we could work on pricing and things, so if you guys wanna see that, just say yes, and we'll start working on that hopefully before April to include.
Moving on to preliminary budget work session.
So in your packet, you received the preliminary budget worksheet. It's just a refined worksheet from the budget workshops that we have completed. There hasn't been too much change. John Conway and I did some expense and revenue calculations further for the street department in regards to Perry Avenue and the sidewalk project. And so the spending, the deficit spending out of their fund balance is much less than it was in our budget workshops. And again, this is because Perry Avenue has not been completed and is going to be under construction this fiscal year. And so we are supplementing funds from this fiscal year into the streets fund balance. So because we did not spend it this year on the construction of Perry Avenue. And then water, we made some adjustments with water. There was a project in water that was not included, which was the water portion of Perry Avenue. And so we included that in expense in the water budget as well. After speaking with Mr. Conway, we felt the best course of action for these two major projects that we're going to start bidding on here shortly was to get at least halfway through them, see where we were at in the budget. Because obviously the longer we wait to bid them out, costs of materials may increase, and so the original estimates may not be adequate for what the actual cost of construction are going to be. So we're going to keep a close eye on those two first, make any adjustments that we need to make as necessary before we move on to any of the other projects, and to make sure that we stay within the guidelines that we presented to you guys. Do you have any questions?
Are the columns for total activity for 2001, 22, and then also 22 and 23, are those new columns? I don't remember seeing those before.
Yes, so this is actually, the worksheet shows you what the total activity was for 21 and 22, what the current activity is for 22, 23, and then what we're requesting for 23, 24. So it just kind of gives you a comparison. And now 22, 23 is just the total activity up till the day that I printed this. It's not anything after that. But the final numbers are 21 and 22.
It's very informative.
Thank you for putting that in there.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions or concerns? Anything that you want to see added or taken out? That's all I have. I will say this, the first meeting in April, we'll go over the ordinances for the budget amendments, and we will go over another ordinance for the allocation of funds for this budget. So that'll be the first reading for both of those. So we'll have budget amendments that'll finalize out this fiscal year, and then we'll have the first reading of this budget. And so when you get it in your package, you'll see the actual budget book. It won't be completed because anything that you would like changed before we finally approve it in the second meeting in April, I'll have to change and redo the numbers. But we'll move this into the final phases in those first and second readings, and first and second meetings, so.
Any other questions?
You were looking at me when you said anything that we want added? Are you expecting me to suggest that I add something?
I just wanted to know if you wanted to talk about curb and gutter.
Well, we talked about it last time. I don't know if anyone agrees with me or not. I would defer to James, honestly.
What are we talking about? No, I'm kidding. So, you know, I still stand by that we can do, you know, several feet of curb and gutter repairs within our budget as it stands. It won't necessarily be a standalone curb and gutter project as we had initially intended, but that was prior to some different opportunities arising and needing to use funds for matching funds to apply for grants for various things. So, but we can still go address the problem spots. You know, the nice thing about curb and gutter is that throughout town, curb and gutter, for the most part, is poured individually prior to the street deck being poured itself. So you can simply come back, cut along that joint, cut on each end of the bad section, rip and remove that. We purchased a 12-inch bucket for the mini excavator a few years ago just for that. And then you can form it up and pour it back in place fairly easily. The reason that we were initially looking to contract with Watson Concrete is it's their bread and butter. They have a big enough crew and they can come in and do much more of it a lot faster than we can.
If you want certain addresses, 402 Christie, 404 Christie, 406 Christie, 100 Caspian.
There's one on Dogwood.
You have the address.
Yeah.
But you're comfortable with doing kind of one-off projects with the existing budget?
Certainly. I mean, we don't want to go in and, okay, so I'm Christie Lane and Billy Joe Sapp. Those are the two roads that we intend to do asphalt mill and overlay this year. We're gonna come through, and we started doing this on Billy Joe Sapp last year, patching panels of concrete as needed to get that ready. We're not gonna repair it to where it's 100% like a perfectly fine street, because at that point was, you know, now we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Well, it depends on the deficiency. Like if it's got a crack that's separated and you're starting to see a panel settle, that's got to be addressed. If it's merely a hairline crack that runs across the panel, that's fine. The milling machine will take care of that, and you will see some reflective cracking through your asphalt in a few years, but that's treated with a crack sealer that we already have. So it's just kind of this judgment call, but you know, curb and gutter are interesting in that they are a small section that gets a lot of traffic in and out, and you have vehicles coming in, changing their angles, and changing the direction of travel. It's not high speed, but it's high frequency. So they tend to deteriorate more rapidly than the rest of your curb and gutter.
All right. I'm satisfied, thank you.
Move on to appointment to board of commissions. Appointment to board of commissions, Kyle Michael and James Creel to Mid-Mo Solid Waste Management District Council.
This is a pretty routine appointment that they do. I believe in the past, the mayor has been one of those. You're welcome to be one of those. We just figured there's not a requirement for it to be an elected person, and who likely has the most availability to go to these meetings when they do pop up. James or I can certainly go to those meetings. We already have a pretty strong working relationship with Mid-Missouri Solid Waste Management District, so figured it would be not a big ask for us to try and go to these meetings when they pop up.
Can I get a motion to appoint Kyle Michael and James Creel to the Mid-Mo Solid Waste Management District Council? So we have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Blank?
Aye.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderwoman Bell?
Aye.
And Alderman Old.
Aye.
Special public comments, I see none. Just a reminder, make sure you get your public comments into the city clerk by Wednesday of the meeting day. Public hearing, I see none. Introductions and first reading, Council Bill number 2023-005, an ordinance of the city of Ashland, Missouri, amending the city code in regards to recreational marijuana use.
So we had a closed meeting about this last time. Got a lot of good insight, some of the things that I had initially prepared, the council were, just didn't care for, and that's my fault. I've removed those. I've subsequently gotten some more comments from the council. And I believe this is something that you could pass today, or at least first read. Just as way of background, as I've always said, it's the model that we wrote for the firm. We use it in a lot of cities. This is kind of a middle of the road one. We removed a lot of provisions. I would describe this as being more favorable to marijuana use. But having thought about it, particularly Councilman Plank gave me a lot of good background and a lot of insight. I am tempted to, I think you could pass this. I think you can read it. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll do what you all want. And it's been done at it's relatively inexpensive because we use a model. I don't start from scratch. And the thing's 25 pages long, as you no doubt have seen. It is tempting, if you all still are, as a group, unhappy, I'm tempted to consider writing you all an individual ordinances for, like, here's the dispensary part, and here is what people can, smoke in public part. That is less efficient, that is more expensive, but it would allow you to have a more specified opinion on a particular segment. Does that understand what I'm saying? Breaking it up, because as it's written now, it covers the whole gambit, the licensure settings for dispensaries, talks about medical stuff, it talks about what you can and can't do. But I did, in light of Mr. Plank, and again, I don't mean to single you out, I thought your insight was very useful and insightful. He was unhappy with the direction of the current ordinance. But I thought I might offer that in the event that there was a disagreement and there was not a strong unanimity on how this should go. And I don't think that that's a problem because it is such a long ordinance. It's not your usual one that's one page about one thing. It covers a lot of different topics, and it can be hard for everyone to see eye to eye on a singular topic. If that makes sense, I wanted to offer that as an option. That's going to be much more time consuming. I have the time to do it. I'd love to have the business, but I wanted to be upfront and say, look, what we've got here, you all haven't had to spend a ton of money on, and it's because it's a model. And as a result, there are particular little things that may not be absolutely ideal for Ashland, and that's this, the downside of using the models. They're cheaper, they're faster, that's why we do it. But with that preliminary comment, is there any specific question that I might answer? Again, I know it's a lengthy bill. It has provisions. I removed provisions. I had a stronger business about driving. I took that out. We went with the minimums on a lot of the distances and things. But that's what the changes were since the last time we chatted. My thought about the time-sensitive nature, I thought it would, as I discussed before, I was felt like it might be productive to have it before 420. That is less of a concern now because we've taken out some provisions that, in light of what was said in the closed session. So I probably should stop rambling on about it. Does anybody have any particular question?
I like your suggestion about splitting it up into three different pieces. I don't know if anybody else does, but I like that.
And I'll be honest with you, this is the longest ordinance that I've done for you all since I've been your city attorney. It's easily the most complicated, easily covers the most ground, and it does lend itself to being broken up. We could have something just about, here's how the dispensary permits will go, and that could be a separate ordinance, easily digested, not as elaborate. We could have one about, smoking in public, possession by minors, the 5 things that are in the amendment that must be addressed. We could do that. That sort of thing if you want. I don't have a model for that, so I'd start from scratch, kind of. I don't intend to, obviously this would be a cut and paste job, but if you all want me to do that, I'm very happy to. I don't think it would require gobs and gobs of time, but up to this point, I think I probably have put into the model maybe 4 hours, something like that. Very modest amount of time for something this long. Starting with what I'm proposing, I don't think it's going to be 40 hours, don't misunderstand me, but it would be more involved. But if you all like that, I'm happy to do it.
So what is it, Lauren, that you saw in here that you would prefer to have it split up? Is there some?
There's several things. Let me see what I got left for notes here. The biggest thing, and I'm probably gonna get overruled on this, is the driving while high piece. I think that needs to be addressed. And some might say, well, that's redundant, because maybe the state amendment already addresses that. However, isn't then the entire amendment redundant, whatever it's covering? So I think if it's covered with the state, I think we also need to cover it here and put our own spin on it. Getting input from the community, maybe other attorneys. I just think it needs to be more robust for our police department. And right now, there's nothing in the amendment that speaks to that. I think that's the wrong move.
Well, you can follow state law. I mean, state law is already covered for drug usage and driving while intoxicated. It's already covered that, so.
There's also an open container and driving while high bill that's pending in the legislature, so I would rather not pay anybody to work on it yet until we see, because again, if the legislature passes in May, it becomes effective on the 20th of August, and then we're subject to it anyway, and then whatever we did on that is essentially null and void, so.
I would say,
Sit it out.
in deference to that comment, there are, I mean, just a huge number of statutes in the books that need to be changed. There are a plethora of bills in the General Assembly hopper to address that. And it's not just driving there. I mean, the entire drug code needs to be changed, 195, all the 579 criminal statutes. An argument could be made that waiting until the end of August to see what passes and what doesn't could be productive. I'm not optimistic, however, that a comprehensive remedy will be forthcoming. But your point is well taken.
Yeah, I would not be in favor of spending a lot more money. I think what you presented is, pretty much covers everything. One thing I was a little bit upset about, I guess, was that my order can't be delivered by drone.
Hey, we don't even have Amazon.
So I guess what in here is not required, like if we just said, all I want is what the statute requires and nothing more.
So the statute, the amendment itself contemplates a pre-existing regime for dispensary licensure, for example. That is not a good assumption in most towns like this one. It presumes, for example, that the state laws about marijuana would automatically be amended, and it does not. There's the statute that says you cannot smoke marijuana, still is on the books. You can look it up on the RISMO, it's still there. It has not been repealed. It seems to contemplate, for example, that a town would have a comprehensive policy about smoking tobacco. It presumes that a town has rules in place and piggybacks on that. So it is our position, my position, that no town is in the position, perhaps a very, very, very large one, to just not change their amendment or change their marijuana ordinances. You need to have stuff to this amendment to make sense. If somebody shows up in City Hall, I would like to build a dispensary here, you need to have rules in place to make that process theoretically possible. I understand there's not a dispensary in Ashland, there may never be one. But somebody would show up and want to do one, this ordinance provides you with the means to do that. And it is within your city purview to decide how that should be done. And this sets that out, for example. The amendment doesn't automatically create a city system for allowing dispensaries. That's probably the easiest example. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, I mean, there's stuff in there about marijuana beverages. I don't think that you all will ever have an occasion to be concerned about that, but if somebody ever does show up, it's on your books. It has the absolute minimum requirements in terms of you can't have a dispensary close to a school, you can't distribute to someone under the age of 21, you can't possess more than 6 ounces, but that's it. I did remove, and the thing that it's my fault, I got overly aggressive on the driving thing and took it out, which is fine. Mr. Wilson is correct. You could pull somebody over with the existing DWI statute and process them. I quibble with that process, but if you all don't want to be on that, the forefront of that, that's fine. You don't have to be. And there are good reasons to not be. I don't mean to, downplay your concern. I think it's relevant. And of course, I'm just here to recommend. I don't insist. So if you all want to first read this and get it going, you can. I did make that offer, but I wanted to be very clear about the cost. And that would be the reason to not do it, quite frankly. So.
We need a motion to approve.
You do?
I need a motion to approve. Oh,
I guess one of the other big factors was section 29.115,
Okay? And that is about,
letter C, dealing with restaurants.
Yeah.
That can serve food, that has marijuana in it,
Yeah.
whether it's edibles or whatever. I thought we weren't going to allow that to be something.
so that may have been an oversight. That is something that's in the model. That particular point, I don't think we discussed that in closed session. If you would like that removed, that doesn't hurt my feelings. And I'll be candid with you, that was not a detail that was Ashland specific. It just was in the model.
Mhm,
So,
sure.
if you have a strong view, it will not cause the rest of the framework to crumble to take out that particular detail.
Say the number again?
It's on page
19,
yeah.
page 19.
But I think it's mentioned in a couple spots, not just that spot. There's one other spot where it's mentioned.
I remember and again, I really do appreciate your email. It was very thoughtful and detailed. I should have had a better handle on where that stuff is in the ordinance.
And, you know, I understand, I'm only one alderman. I know everybody has a different opinion, so.
No,
I don't want to.
I mean-
understand that there's different viewpoints.
And again, I speak with absolute candor always. This is a 25-page ordinance. That is a provision that I did not give a lot of attention to for Ashland specifically. I mean, and I didn't bring it up, and that falls on me. I apologize. And that's why I'm so confident in telling you, if you'd like that provision removed, that doesn't hurt my feelings. That's a sincere comment. I think that, I don't know that anybody here is vigorously in favor of marijuana-infused tea being in Ashland, which is what this sort of thing talks about.
So let me ask you this on that one.
Yeah.
Do you have? If it's not listed, so like, if we take that out, public consumption, is there, cause that basically doesn't say you can or can't, it just says that if you do, you must register with the city. So is there, if that's removed, is there anything in the state statute that would allow you to do that without registering with the city?
Not the state statute, the amendment, which supersedes state statute. There are state statutes that would make it illegal to serve a marijuana-infused beverage, but the amendment specifically authorizes, it contemplates that a restaurant would do this. Without this provision, it becomes ambiguous and vague. It does not preclude someone from doing it.
Cause I feel like the city, I mean, whether you change the language of that to say whether you register with the city, it maybe should be,
Must get a permit.
must be, approved by the city.
Sure.
Cause I just don't want,
But if you're selling like weed brownies, you would still have to have a permit to sell weed, and no one has a permit to sell weed, right? Like, you can't just buy weed off someone else and bake them into food and then sell them.
You cannot.
Right, so like, we don't have a dispensary, we don't have a licensed grower, so like, you can't like,
I mean, I'm just thinking,
I mean, you
like,
couldn't do
long
it anyway.
term is like if, I mean, I don't know if there's gonna be the Amazon weed where you can go buy hot dogs with weed, get delivered to the store and they cook them and, I mean,
The amendment.
I'm just saying from a future standpoint is that if it's in there, I doubt anybody's gonna be serving food, but if they do, we would prefer the city to be either provide approval or aware.
Amendment 3 contemplates a city with liquor licenses for liquor stores and by the drink liquor licenses. That is the framework that it exists. That a city would have dispensaries analogous to liquor stores, package stores, where you can go buy stuff. And then separately, there would be a process where a restaurant could sell, just like they sell beer or put Bailey's in your coffee, we're gonna put THC in our coffee. It contemplates that sort of framework, which is why that's in there. To be honest with you, the bigger part of this is well, I shouldn't say that. If you want that to say, restaurants serving food that contains marijuana must seek approval of the city, that is not contrary to the amendment. You could flat ban it if you wish, but to move this conversation along, if you want to change the word must register with must have approval of, that doesn't present a problem. It's not contrary to the amendment.
I think that might get what you want done.
I think so.
And my suggestion would be, because again, it's such a long ordinance, just make that change by a motion from one of the council members, a motion to amend the statute And if you were to do that, I would say out loud what you wanted it to say.
I make a motion to make that change.
Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We would amend section 29.115, public consumption, subsection C to read, restaurants serving food that contains marijuana must have approval of the city and provide notice to all entrances and to all menus that certain foods contain marijuana.
Has anyone sued on this ordinance yet?
There are lawsuits that I'm aware of that have been contemplated. I don't know that they've even been filed. There isn't any in the Circuit Court of Cole County. As you know, that will be the constitutional complaint, which will fail because it's an amendment. The 25 statutes that are in conflict don't provide a basis for standing or a good avenue for suing. So there's unlikely to be a suit that would be productive on these points. Anything else?
I'll stop talking.
No, you're fine. And again, I appreciate the feedback we got in the closed session. That made it easier. It makes it easier to know where you all are at these times.
So, could I get a motion to approve
The amended
the
ordinance.
amended ordinance of Council Bill number 2023-005, an ordinance of the city of Ashland, Missouri, amending the city code in regard to the recreational marijuana use. I need a motion.
So moved.
Can I have a second? Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Volkart?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Vale?
Aye.
And Alderman Oak.
Aye.
Moving on. Council Bill number 2023-006, an ordinance approving Rankin Lot number 3 subdivision plat. Replat.
Replat. I will change that right now.
I'm told to slow things down a bit, so.
So James can talk longer?
This is a replat of Lot 3 of the Rankin subdivision. The purpose of this replat is to divide Lot 3 into 2 lots, creating Lot 3A and 3B. The owner of the property is JAJ LLC, and the submitting firm is Simon & Strumpf Engineering. Derek Forbes of Central County Surveying did the survey and plat. The city engineer, John Conway, performed the review. Currently, Lot 3 is approximately 15.8 acres in size. Lot 3A will be approximately 5.32 acres, and 3B 10.48 acres. This parcel sits just east of Highway 63 on Perry Avenue, just south of Ashland Drive, and lots 1 and 2 of the Rankin subdivision. This is currently zoned CG, General Commercial. The intent of this subdivision is to transfer a portion of the property to a new LLC for development purposes. The 2 created lots will serve as holding lots and will be replatted or subdivided when they are to be developed. Lot 3 is currently accessed from Perry Avenue. With the creation of lots 3A and 3B, 3B will have a 25-foot access easement on the south side to grant access and utilities to lot 3A. Staff recommends approval of the replat of Lot 3 of the Rankin subdivision as it has met the requirements of the city code and was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Any questions?
Is that south of the building?
Correct.
I have a random question, I think it is on topic, but somebody said, yeah, I was driving by, it looks so small.
The Rankin building,
Yeah, and I said, it kinda does. Yeah.
20,000 square feet is not as big as it used to be.
What did you just say? You had to wait when you're on film?
I just didn't know if they had, like, if there was another part of the building that we were missing still, and somebody asked that, they're like, is there gonna be like an outbuilding or something, or is there, if like, it just,
No, that's it.
that's it, okay.
So, it goes back. Like I said, 20,000 square feet is not as big as it used to be. There are houses in Boone County that are over 20,000 square feet. So
James
that's
is
a
not.
primary. I knew it was coming. It's not, for the record.
Real Manor?
It's not.
The pool house?
It's not. This is a little less than that. I can confirm.
Okay. All right, I didn't have a good answer for them, and I agree, it looks kind of small, so.
Yeah,
okay.
it's per plan, it's the size it's supposed to be.
Okay, thank
Was there
you.
any concerns from P and Z?
Not on this, no.
All right, can we get a motion to approve Council Bill number 2023-006, an ordinance approving Rankin Lot 3 subdivision replat?
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Old,
Aye.
Alderman Bell,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Lockhart.
Aye.
Alderman Plank.
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Moving on, Council Bill number 2023-007, ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute the right-of-way dedication for the Perry Avenue extension.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, before you this evening is an ordinance regarding the Perry Avenue project. We need to dedicate a section of property that's currently owned by the city as right-of-way, along with a drainage slope and utility easement along that said right-of-way, to be in compliance with MoDOT requirements for this project.
So if we do that,
You want to start on it?
how will that move the project along?
Slightly.
We'll move it through this hurdle.
We were informed yesterday that there is another hurdle regarding the federalization of the MoDOT cost share funds. So we anticipate that probably sometime in May, it will have to go in front of the Missouri Highways Commission. Upon their approval, we'll be able to award a bid. What the engineers have told us is that once we've completed this right-of-way, we'll return the documents to them tomorrow, they believe we will be given conditional authorization to bid while it is undergoing the FHWA review required by the federalized funds.
And I had a chat with James and Kyle yesterday about this. They told me about it. And I'm satisfied of two facts. Number one, it's their money. We have to do what they tell us to, which is the reality. But that the finish line being pushed back is what's happening. I've been giving some thought. I don't have any great miraculous solutions, but I agree. This is becoming tedious and unrealistic and killing the efficiency. And your Rankin School is gonna open with one access on the highway. And we need to do something about that. I'm working on it. I've got Nathan working on it. I don't know that I'm gonna have some miracle answer, but I appreciate the city staff telling me about it, because now that I have a better understanding of what's going on, their frustration is entirely justified. This is not merely just random red tape that you expect in government works. They seem to be unduly obstreperous, and that is the most polite way I would describe what they're doing. So, with that useless Finn.
Can I get a motion to approve Council Bill 2023-007, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute right-of-way dedication for the Perry Avenue extension?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Plank.
Aye.
Alderman Lockhart.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Bell.
Aye.
And Alderman Old.
Aye.
Moving on to old business. Ordinance number 1427, ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute right-of-way dedication to Perry Avenue extension.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, for you tonight, you have second reading of this ordinance regarding the right-of-way and easement conveyance to ourselves from property we currently own.
Make the motion that we approve it.
I'll second.
Got it. Alderman Old.
Aye.
Alderman Bell.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Lockhart.
Aye.
Alderman Plank.
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Moving on to new business, a resolution the mayor to execute an agreement with TWM Incorporation for engineering services related to the TAP grant sidewalk and trail project.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, before you this evening is a resolution to accept the draft engineering services agreement for the TAP project. We've worked with TWM Engineering along with the co-applicants, Southern Boone YMCA and Southern Boone School District, to get these numbers to a point where the project will proceed. We're confident we've done that. This draft contract has a not-to-exceed amount of $44,525. I'm confident that we can reduce that cost, as I'm sending some of Public Works staff to get MoDOT technician certified so that they can complete some of the construction engineering aspects in regards to materials testing and help reduce the expense of having an engineer firm on site for observation.
Any questions for James?
And this makes MoDOT happy and we keep moving.
MoDOT has approved this, but it will have to go back for a second approval, I believe, upon passing the resolution.
That's where they get you.
Can I get a motion approving the resolution of the mayor to execute agreement with the TWM Incorporated for engineering services related to the TAP Grant Sidewalk Trail Project?
I'll make the motion.
I have a second, please.
I'll second.
Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Plank.
Aye.
Alderman Bocart.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Bell.
Aye.
And Alderman O.
Aye.
Alright, moving on, a resolution approving the site plan for a car quest.
All right, this is a request for approval of a commercial site plan for a retail auto parts store. The owner of this property is Sanford Investments LLC, and the submitting engineering firm is Allstate's Consultants. The city engineer, John Conway, reviewed this site plan. The subject site is lot 12, East Ashland Plaza, and is approximately 1.2 acres in size. This property is east of the intersection of Industrial and East Side Drives, and also on the north side of Blue Stream Drive, kind of on the corner there. This is currently zoned general commercial, CG. This site plan is for an approximately 10,000 square foot automotive parts retailer, and that's half the size of Rankin. When this development was planned back in 2008, a traffic impact study was done anticipating this type of retail business. There will be an entrance, exit on both the south and west sides of the property. A public sidewalk will be installed along both road frontages. Water retention for East Ashland Plaza has been a constant topic of discussion for the Planning and Zoning Commission since this development's inception. With that said, stormwater for this site will be directed to the south into the community detention on lot 11B. This detention has yet to be constructed. Staff recommends approval of the submitted site plan with the condition that a building permit not be issued until the required stormwater detention is installed and verified on lot 11B. This will be necessary to meet the requirements of the city code and also satisfy the expectations of the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval. Now, we are lucky enough to have both the owner and the engineer here to answer the questions you have.
So who's required to handle the stormwater detention being installed on lot 11B?
So it was submitted to us, the stormwater plan, but it hasn't been installed yet. So
But who owns that 11B? Who owns that lot?
the developer.
The landowner's gonna have to do it.
Donnie, are you cool with the condition that you have to wait for CL to get that done before you can do your building permit?
Yeah. So we don't love the condition. Normally on any lot in Ashland, you would withhold occupancy till the detention's put in. If we were doing on-site detention, we wouldn't have to have the detention pond put in and certified before the building permit is issued. So it's a little bit odd in this case, but if that's the condition that has to be met, then that's what has to be met. Normally it would be the occupancy that's withheld.
Was that something that planning and zoning presented?
Correct.
Cause I get it. get it, but I don't know if I 100% agree with putting that on him, if it's not his lot that he can even do anything with. Is there any
I mean, he
plans
has
in
an
place?
option. He has an option, he can do onsite, but he's one of the lots that, it's first come, first serve on that detention.
Is there a time frame for like CL to either do that or be compelled to do that, or?
You designed it right, so we'll let you.
Yeah, so it's been designed and approved by the city. I spoke to, Dave Richardson last week. The pipe that's sitting out there is for the detention pond. He said he's gonna start it as soon as it quits raining. So I expect it'll be in a few weeks.
Is that the black pipe that's sitting out there like right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're close
Yeah.
to hopefully.
Yeah,
getting
he
it.
said, and I quote, "I'd had it done if it wasn't raining so much." That's what he told me. So I think it's any time. But I understand that, you know, the onus is on you guys to require that. Our point would be that, just like with any lot, occupancy would be withheld until all the things on the plans are put in. But that's how the discussion.
And I guess if we approve this as planning and zoning has it written, and for some whatever reason, CL's delayed another 6 months or whatever, that he could always come back and say, I'd really like to get started building this, even if we don't grant occupancy. I mean, just because we agree to this doesn't mean he's stuck, because like I said before, I get it, but it's unfortunate to.
Yeah, I mean, nothing about this particular action holds him up in perpetuity. I mean, he has options. He can do onsite if he wants to do onsite. It's obviously cheaper if he just waits out CL to get that project done.
If tomorrow
His recommendation.
a biblical flood arrives and you all are of the opinion we want to relieve them of that requirement later, you could. There's no legal barrier. And in fact, it might be advisable to do that before they took something.
It is just PMZ's recommendation. You don't have to take it. You're welcome to amend that. It's up to you guys.
I was at the P&Z meeting. I really do think we need to keep that in there. There have been issues in the past where there have been conditions discussed but not put into the ordinance. And fast forward a couple of years later, no one can find that written evidence that it was even discussed. So that took, you know, a little bit of discussion there too.
It did.
And they've got a point, you know, it's.
So was there the discussion of the alternate of withholding the occupancy as opposed to the building permit, or was that not even talked about?
That wasn't even talked
Yeah, I
about.
don't think that was even talked about.
But it makes the stick applicable quicker, obviously. You know, we're gonna make you meet our demands sooner on your timeline.
I think
It's easily visible at that point.
So I think it sounds like right now it's not ideal, but it's not contentious at this point. It's fine to approve it the way that it's written, and if something happens that prevents you from moving forward, then we would just address it at that time.
Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve it as it's written.
As written. Have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Old,
Aye.
Alderman Bell,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Volkart,
Aye.
Alderman Plank. Aye. Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution of the Board of Aldermen authorizing the city administrator to file with the Boone County ARPA grant.
This is follow-up to when we were here just a few meetings ago to talk about the Missouri Economic Development Authority ARPA grant. This is the second grant that we had mentioned at that time through Boone County, through their first round of funding. They're doling out $15 million for ARPA-related projects. So we are putting the same project, the wastewater treatment plant expansion, in there. The intent behind it would be to try and capture some funds here to use as matching for the Missouri Economic Development Authority grant. That grant should award sometime next month. We haven't seen any indication that that's going to be, pushed back or anything like that. They haven't put any updates on the website or posted any information about the applicants. So We'll just kind of be in a holding pattern until that one awards. The Boone County grant closes at the end of March, so March 31st. So the plan will be to wrap up that this week with John, get everything filed away, and submit that grant application. James went a few weeks ago to present the project at one of the Boone County listening sessions, so they're kind of aware that we intend to come forward with a grant application. As of now, there's not a whole lot that we're aware of coming out of Southern Boone County. I believe the Optimist Club has one, Southern Boone Fire has one, the YMCA, I believe, has one as well, and that's really all we're tracking on. I'm sure there's some others that we're just not aware of, but we're hopeful that perhaps that applicant pool is somewhat small for Southern Boone so that ours will score reasonably well.
Any questions for Kyle? No? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution of the Board of Aldermen authorizing the city administrator to file with the Boone County General Offer Grant?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
And Alderman Old.
Aye.
Moving on to reports. Mayor report, I have just a few things. We had, last week we had the 80s prom, it was a great turnout. And then last Tuesday, we had the trivia at Woody, that also was a great turnout. And only complaint I had last week or this week is on Village of Sap. I'm just joking, don't have to put it in there. That's my report, thank you. City administrator.
I printed off the current results of the recycling survey before I came down. So as of about 4 o'clock or so, we had 139 responses, so that's pretty good. The results haven't really changed from when I reported a week prior, so you can kind of see those once they make it around. I know I've previously sent out via email some of the potential options and costs associated with those, so this is just to give you an update on kind of where we're at with the survey. Welcome to ask or answer any questions right now or have some discussion around recycling, but for the most part, we're just gonna keep running this survey for a little bit longer. James has some more signage that'll be coming for the recycling lot to help further, enhance good behavior down there, hopefully. We haven't really had a whole lot of abuse in the past handful of weeks. We had one day over the last couple of weeks that it was a little messy down there, but for the most part, it's more or less cleaned itself up.
Is there anything we can do to get more responses? I mean, I have a hard time making a decision for the whole city based on 139 responses. That just.
There's only so much we can do to continue to push it out there. I mean, it's posted on everybody's socials. The chamber's pushing it in their newsletter and on social media, which also goes out to Southern Boone Economic Development's Facebook page. We're pushing it on ours. I think ABC has pushed it for us. News ran it multiple times and mentioned the survey. Next closest thing we can do is put it in everybody's mailbox and hope they look at it. Is really what it comes down to. We can certainly do that. It just comes down to, what's the goal? How many do we want to try and get in terms of responses? Obviously, this is a little bit low. We have roughly 1,800 and some change of residential customers that are paying into recycling right now. So.
Was there a mailing in the last bill?
Not particular to the survey itself. We only do those mailers, the newsletters on a quarterly basis. So this kind of came about afterwards. We did put some recycling education in that newsletter, but what we can probably do, I'll have to look into what the email capabilities are on the e-bills that go out to see if we can further push that as well, that direction, because that won't have any costs associated to it.
Kyle, is there a public breakdown? And I know it's on the city bill, but I mean, is there a public breakdown? I think you sent maybe something to us, but something that shows like, this is what you pay today with the bin, or with the container at the recycling lot, and this is if you go curbside like what the actual total cost is, cause I think,
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't received much response just like this, except there was, I think there was somebody that had a question about, and obviously this isn't this isn't like an exact question anyway, but they were concerned or curious about what the 10 or more per month, is that 10 plus what you're paying now, is that 10 for recycling? So if there's maybe something that we can,
Yes,
out
I
and
mean, what
share,
I,
just
what I had sent to you guys, right now, your total for, we'll just call it for solid waste. So your total for solid waste is about $17.84. That covers $13.34 a month for trash, $1 for recycling, $1.50 for yard waste, and a $2 collection fee. That's what it is right now. If you added what Republic is proposing for curbside, which is $7, that takes you up to $24.84 a month. And that's with keeping the $1 for the bin down there.
So we curbside plus the bin.
Correct.
Or weren't we gonna forego an increase in trash too?
Yeah, so that waives the increase of May 1st for trash, which would take it from $13.34 to $13.74, so.
so did you say the curbside and the bin?
Yeah.
And that's the thing,
24.
is that a
7 for the curbside, 1 for the bin.
Well, but I mean the one for the bin, like if they get curbside, the bin goes away, right?
That's up to you guys. I mean, I just gave you the math for what it is.
Well, I just thought that was like the big question that everybody had was, I thought, and maybe I just misread, I mean, I know there's been a few things, but that it wasn't a la carte, so to speak. It was you either curbside toter or you bin, but not both at the same time.
So the way Republic has proposed it is we would lose access to the current free bin. So the bin that we have down there, it's collected on certain days of the week as part of the overall trash contract. The other days we pay for the collection on that bin, so that's what that $1 is for.
So it would basically just be a $1 expense that shifts around?
We would keep that $1, and what I heard, at least from the majority of the board members, that they would like to see the recycling lot stay. The county does intend eventually to bring their bin back. They're working on repainting their bins, getting new signage on it as well, to help educate the folks on that. So the thought is, if the board wants to try and keep the bin down there, there is a cost associated with that. We would keep the $1. That would facilitate, 1 second here.
Because then we would be paying to have it dumped at that point.
Correct.
They would not do any free.
But so what would the bill, so like if Stephanie loved curbside and I didn't,
That's not an option right now. Republic's not willing to offer that as
We
an
do
option.
curbside to everybody.
well, but that's what I don't understand is like, so you just pay for it even if you keep the bin in your garage or whatever kind of thing?
You don't even have to have the bin.
But you still
You
have
gotta
to
pay for it, but you don't have to have it.
That's what I think some people are upset about, because not everybody wants that. Some people want the curbside and some don't. So and I understand.
We're never gonna get to 4,747 people all wanting it. We just have to figure out what that tipping point is.
I still don't understand why, when we voted this down by a very close vote, by 1 vote the last time, it was only gonna be an increase of $1, not an increase of $7.
The city was gonna pay for like the first year, and there was still all that opposition to it, which,
The proposal was $7 then as well, but the city was going to pay to stair step that in, which is certainly
Where are we
something.
getting that money from?
Trash fund balance.
Those were the funds that were utilized to build the recycling center.
We still have trash
We
fund
had the
balance, we can
recycling center
certainly.
when we voted for it the last time.
Maybe it was 2 times ago then.
Do we still have the trash fund balance
We
right now?
still have existing trash fund balance. If there's a desire to buy that down for some period of time, it's an option.
I mean, I thought we should have done that last time, but like literally people didn't want it for free. Cause they don't want the bin, I mean, that's and I mean, that's fine, like, but just people just were like, I don't want the bin, I don't have a place to put the bin. But if can you say, don't send me a bin?
Yep. Still gotta pay the $7 for it, but you're not required to have.
But
it
if the
at your
city
house.
does like what they did last time and pays for a year or whatever, you can say no bin and you get no bin.
And I will tell you, and it's just, I spent an hour last night, I think all of my large cities have trash can, recycling can struggles. It surprises me how passionate people are on this subject.
It's
So-
the most,
It's not an Ashland thing.
it's the most.
I mean, it's something that people are super concerned about.
Okay, so I have a question. So when, at the recycling lot, when we had the last big fiasco and the city got charged because there was trash in with the recycling and it had to go to the landfill. Was that the county that charged us or the
They've
Republic?
actually not charged us yet. They've said they were going to, and we have not received a bill to my knowledge.
Okay,
Yes, it's
so-
coming from, so the way county works is they contract with City of Columbia, who contracts with, who's your trash provider?
T-Mac?
T-Mac. So T-Mac is the one that said, nope, it's going to the dump. County absorbed that cost, is what I'm assuming, because the bill has not trickled down to us.
Would you get punished
So-
for having mixed
so-
stuff?
Correct.
Suppose we go to curbside. Had one email, someone who's very opposed to this and said that if we do that, they're going to put trash in their recycling.
They won't pick it up at all.
They've
It'll
got-
just stay
They've
in
got a
the
camera
driveway.
on the truck, so they kind of take a gander before they dump.
Yeah, if there's trash in your recycling bin, it just stays there.
Cause
in the driveway.
I just don't want us to start getting charged every month because half the people decide to protest. and then-
Furthermore, I would say that person is
Don't say
approaching
it.
a criminal line,
Don't
making
say
such a threat.
I lived in Jeff City, I put a lot of trash in my recycling and they always picked it up.
So Republic contracts specifically states for their bin that it can be contaminated up to 25% of the capacity. So I mean, there's frequently trash in there, it's just not enough for it to tip the scale.
Cause you have to remember
That particular
trash,
issue with T-Mac is it was well over that 25% margin.
and they kinda have some funky rules, like pizza, anything that had food on it, like a
The
pizza
food
box.
thing is,
Well,
And then-
and keep in mind,
There's
the
some
county
problem.
bin's going north as Republic's is going south, so
Yeah,
different landfills and different
But what they
operators.
consider trash is like probably more than
Well,
what.
I mean, in Columbia for the longest time, I mean, I knew a couple people that worked there, like it's conveyor belt and they're sorting it,
No glass.
trash versus not
Murph.
trash and, so I mean, they find out eventually, you know.
Mhm. But you can have some trash, and it's not, you're not gonna get charged.
One other point to consider, I think it'd be remiss if we didn't at least point it out, was that we did receive grant funding for the lighting at the recycle center. Just so that everyone's aware of that before a decision is made.
I don't think it's a lighting problem, it's the fact that the holes are so teeny tiny.
Oh, I'm not pointing that out
I
as a
mean,
matter
you
of
can-
an issue, I'm just,
you
before a
can still
decision is
bet,
made about possibly
Like
closing something.
placeable toys.
There's
too.
grant funding that was from
You
the
can't.
solid waste management district to provide that light bulb.
I mean, if the boxes are small, I'm gonna put it in my regular trash. The only reason I go to that lot is when I have these huge cardboard boxes, and those holes are so teeny tiny, you can't fit anything in there. So I think
By
people
design.
get frustrated,
By
So try to
design.
keep people from throwing bags of trash in there with you.
Yep.
yeah.
And, you know, ideally, you know, one of the problems we historically have struggled with is volume versus weight.
Yeah.
When people are still able to get large boxes through, or they open the tail end of it and put it in large boxes. And that reduces the available space in there, and then the scale tickets tell the tale. So that's part of the reason why those holes are small, to encourage people to break down their boxes.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the struggle is, you know, say you do curbside and you take away the lot, you know, it's not like the cardboard goes away, so I think people are just gonna burn it, or, you know, they're gonna dispose of it in another way, which I don't think, we also don't want, right? So, I don't know. I mean, and then the other question is, like, have we talked to Amazon at all? Cause like, I feel like half of this is their fault. I love them. But like, shouldn't, I mean, honestly, do they have a grant or something for like,
So there are,
I
just
mean-
to kind of keep this moving, when we first started discussing this at the staff level last fall, the thought was to pursue a solid waste grant like we did for the recycling lot when the lighting was put up. That's certainly not off the table. That grant cycle is a fall cycle. I think it's due in October sometime. There's options available there to try and further lower the cost of recycling. But as mentioned, you know, we do have fund balance available. It really comes down to whether or not there's a desire of the board to even continue to explore that option, so I can continue to work with Republic and progress us that direction. I mean,
Well, I would
I know
talk
I had
to
sent
them.
out, you know, an email to you guys, you know, you got a spectrum, you either leave it as it is as $1, you can add $1 and we can add more containers and pickups, you can add $3 and we can add more containers and pickups. It's really up to you guys of how you want to address recycling if you wanna address it at all. I mean, we can leave it as is, and
Is there a drop dead date for when that needs to be?
there's not a drop dead, there's just an incentive to approve prior to May 1st, they'll waive that increase on trash, so.
Can I offer an opinion? In light of that deadline, plus in light of the fact that Republic is seemingly unwilling to kind of give us a couple options, I think we need to incorporate the curbside recycling in addition to the yearly buy down of the company. So when it first comes across, it's gonna be pretty cheap for the town. I think the buy down would help alleviate some of the concerns of some of the constituents as far as cost.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't give you a dollar amount as to how much we could potentially put towards it, or how big of a buy down, or how many years we could potentially fund. We don't wanna get rid of all of it, since we do kind of have some staff discussions about putting some additional cameras on that lot down there if we were to keep the lot operational, but, other further improvements that we can make to it just to make it easier access and easier to monitor.
I would have to potentially echo what he's saying. I mean, we're talking about the survey results aren't ideal. I mean, just because we're not getting enough. And I would say maybe it's time to see what better survey than to see if the city can float a year like was offered last year, because they're willing to keep the bin, which was, I think, one of the big deals last time. It was like either or, and people didn't want the curbside toters or whatever. So if we can keep the container at the lot and the city can do some sort of buy down, I would say our survey should be to do that for the next year. And whoever wants to be involved in it can, and whoever doesn't want the bin will still have the option. And if the results are, it's still a problem with trash out there, or there's not that many people engaged, then we can always reassess the next time it comes around.
Also, when can we get rid of the yard waste thing, or at least renegotiate that? Because what you said was $2.50, and like, literally, nobody uses that. So I think too, if it was gonna be $5 plus.
My dad gets your mind with that.
No, I mean, the yard waste results are about like this, actually less results, but, so for yard waste in particular,
That's so high.
James and I
What are
have-
we paying,
it's $1.50.
$1.50? Yeah, no, that's too much.
I mean, we could certainly reduce that. I don't think it necessarily needs to go away. So the conversations James and I have had is, you're correct, it doesn't appear there's a lot of volume that goes down there. We think we as the city have property where we could be the recipient of that yard waste, kind of gauge how much quantity we have for a year, and then reevaluate if we need to contract that out. We've talked to a few companies that would be willing to come in on an annual basis, grind it and haul it off, or we haul it to a location, they grind it and take it off us. There would be costs associated with that. We just don't know how much, because it's based on volume. And we have no indication right now that there's a real lot of volume down there. So, I mean, we could certainly look at reducing that. I would be hesitant to take it away, because there may be a need in the future to make sure that money's in place to pay a contract to grind it up, or whatever the case may be.
But if we went down to like 50 cents as opposed to $1.50, then we save people $1.
I mean, I think it's used more than you think, but it's still not a huge volume.
Yeah, on the times that, I've got shrubs on, when I cut my shrubs, I've got like 2 to 3 pickup trucks load of sticks.
Once a
Where do you
year.
put the sticks?
Yeah.
3-4 times a year.
But you're
So,
still paying
where else?
150% of what you're paying for recycling. And that's getting picked up and is, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems
But
like.
where else do I put it? Yeah, I'm not crazy about having to pay $1.50. Yeah, where do you put it? I don't wanna burn it.
Isn't there private places that you can drop off yard waste?
Not that I know of.
Without paying.
Not without going, I mean, the city cleaned it, but you have to drive it all the way there.
Okay, fair.
Drive it to the landfill and pay the $50 minimum.
So yard waste is one of those things, it's like radioactive material, which nobody wants this stuff. And I don't,
Or you could support your local business and then Salter just takes care of it all for you. Right?
and it is one of those ebb and flow things, nobody uses it in the winter. Good spring starts up and here it comes by the bushel basket.
I don't, yeah, I mean, I just think, it just seems like we're overpaying for that right now. And I think.
Not an unreasonable comment.
Yeah, so if we bought it down from $7 and we reduced that cost, then I think it could be more palatable, so that's what I'm saying, for overall trash service to try to keep it affordable for people.
And since this would entail a new contract, right, this would reset the contract
On trash, yes.
on trash?
Yeah. Renew it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we're
Does-
going into year
Would-
3.
Wouldn't there be, typically with new contracts, I would expect a small increase in my trash bill. You know, so.
So that has, it increases every year for 5 years of the contract. I think it's like 4.6% a year, or 6.4, something like that.
I talked to Lillian about the increase that was gonna happen in May. She hasn't shot me the final number because it's based on the consumer price index. That's how they increase it. So she hasn't shot me the new rates for, trash pickup and then the extra cart, because both of those things do raise. Is your monthly trash pickup, and then for those people who have the extra cart, that fee raises as well, based on the consumer price index.
Are there any options through Republic, and I honestly don't know the answer, but I feel like I lived somewhere that had this, like, that we have the once a year, like, pick anything up. the-
Bulk
They
pickup
still
day, Jim.
we do that. It's
No,
May.
No, I know we do that, I'm just saying, is there another one, like a spring and fall, like, is there a yard waste one that they do, that you can contract for, that then those folks that have a spring and a fall pickup, I mean, that seems like a more reasonable option if we needed it. And can we ask them if they do that in any other communities?
I mean, I could see what they offer in terms of yard waste.
I mean, it'd be worth asking.
How frequently are you using it, Dave? You responded, I know you use it, I just don't know. His is pretty particular, he's not taking grass clippings down there.
3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah, we can reach out to them and see what they have, but I mean, like I said, I think, what James and I had kind of discussed is that the volume doesn't appear to be great, and we feel confident that we as the city can take it and hold it at least for a year to figure out, whether we need to contract out to dispose of that, or whether we can manage it in-house.
And I don't mind hauling mine, I just need a place to
But
go.
I thought it was like Jeff City that they take it and then they chip it up and then they sell it back to people as like mulch, right? Isn't that them?
Columbia, I don't know about Jeff City, Columbia has a program to where at Cape and Park and then up by Cosmo Park, they have their, yard waste sites.
Compost.
Yeah, and then they bring in a tub grinder every so often, and then they mulch, and then it's just free pickup.
Yeah.
It's not dyed mulch, and, not the best mulch, but it's free for public pickup.
Those are my questions.
Let's see here. Lakeside, so just for those upcoming events, since I know there's kind of been some concerns raised by neighbors and whatnot. We've met staff level and with Nick's engineer just about future phases and what other things they plan to do out there. About 3 weeks ago, as a result of that meeting, we kind of identified that some of his larger events probably require a little bit more information, at least for public safety purposes. So we kind of engaged again with Nick and Southern Moon Fire and kind of put together a list, not necessarily a punch list or permit or anything like that, but just things for him to consider and for his event planners to consider. As a result of that, Nick came down with the first 2 events, which are the Fight Night and the Canna Fest. So met with both of those 2 organizers. They had their whole event plan put together with, their traffic management, crowd control, first aid, all that. And Southern Moon Fire was here to kind of be point for that. And we had Gabe in the room as well to represent PD. All went well. They were provided above and beyond what we kind of expected them to provide, so we're quite impressed with that. He's got a nice standardized form Nick has a nice standardized form now that fire is satisfied with, we're satisfied with, so that'll kind of be what they submit to us, just to keep us in the loop on future events. Again, it's not intended to be, a permit or anything like that, just something for us to be able to say, okay, inclement weather, who's gonna be the point of contact up there, what the evacuation plan is, where medical is gonna be staged, how fire can access, how police can access, that type of thing, so. Fight Night, I forget how many people they said we were expecting on that one, but they're busting them all in, it's Mizzou students, so they're busting them all in, so there won't be much parking on site. It'll be reserved for the few select folks that need to drive down there. Canifest, that'll be busting as well. I think they've rented space at Boone County Fairgrounds, is what they said, so.
Yep.
They'll be busting them in from there, so again, not a whole lot of parking or traffic congestion issues as a result of those events. So, that's all I have.
City Attorney's report.
This is mostly for Mr. Plank. Our firm every year puts on all-day trainings. We call them city official training. They're open to anybody. They're all-day events. We cover 10 topics. It's something the firm is famous for. The Jefferson City one is Friday, April 28th. We encourage anybody in the city and city staff or elected officials to go. And so we have these throughout the spring, but the one that's closest to you all is our Jeff City one. And if you're interested, we have information about the topics and the presenters. It's $30 to go, but you get breakfast and lunch for that. And it's very, very, very popular. We get over 1,000 people showing up to these things across all 5 lectures. And Nathan and I will be doing the one in Jeff City, so you can come see us talk all day if you want. So that's my attorney report.
I went last year, it was very informative.
Would you like the information? I can send it to you, Lauren. I can send you the thing if you'd like it.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Sure.
Now, I am signed up for one for June the 8th and 9th in Columbia.
That's not ours.
That's
I
not
can't
this.
remember the name of it.
Yeah, that's the,
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
You bet. That's it, sir.
All right, thank you. Public Works Superintendent.
Most of the highlights of my report have already been discussed this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'll just put two things out there. As for the park project, the ball field rehabilitation project, the restroom was delivered on Friday and set. If you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty nice looking over there by the ball field. As weather allows, staff is going to be completing those utility connections and making repairs to the trail so that we remain in ADA compliance with that facility, and then it will be opened up for public use. Also, there's on April 22nd, there's a couple of things going on. The Parks and Rec Board will be having a park cleanup day, and that same day, a volunteer group, Ashland Community Team, is going to be kicking off their first event in town, and they are going to be cleaning up the majority of the honeysuckle infestation on the northeast corner of the park property. Public Works staff will come out and use some machinery earlier in the week, and then they're gonna come pick it all up and button everything up for us, and then we'll get rid of the honeysuckle the following week.
Any questions for James?
With the TAP grant sidewalk project, what's the best case scenario? MoDOT cooperated on completion.
On TAP grant, I mean, ideally, I wanna have the sidewalk completed by the end of the summer. You know, we're gonna be on the engineer's timeframe. I mean, there's certainly some things to figure out to make sure that we, you know, what we do has to be ADA compliant. There's some slopes and some grades, a couple things that we need to look into. You know, the sidewalk itself from Liberty Land, from Allegiance to the school district, it's not, you know, it's about 1,300 linear feet. It's not a crazy big project. We'll have to do some dirt work beforehand, make sure that we don't have some negative stormwater effects through there, but I'm pushing pretty hard to get that one completed before school starts in the fall.
About the park cleanup, there's a tree next to the creek that has a lot of underbrush under, that's dead under it, or maybe that's the tree you're referring to as far as, it's on the west side of the creek, right near the creek, down from the playground. Just a lot of underbrush that needs to be cut off and.
Okay.
It's just a suggestion.
Yep, no, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any questions? No? Moving on to Community Development Monthly Report.
So I usually ask if you have any questions, but I wanted to add a couple things this time. We did go live with the SmartGov permitting software a couple weeks ago. Pretty exciting. We have a couple permits in there now. So we're basically from March 1st going forward, we're gonna put all the permits in there regardless of whether they submit by paper or not. And we're determining at this point, what becomes public, what isn't. There is access on the website, Ashland Mo. You go to community development, and down at the bottom where you usually pull a building permit, there's a link that takes you to SmartCo's website. There is accessibility without creating a login. There's some public information there, public hearing space, and documents, etc. that are there. Also, on the building size of Rankin again, I just want to point out that for those that are concerned about it being, looking too small, the Amazon warehouse is 55,000 square feet. And the awning over top of it is probably, I'd say, 25,000 square feet. So anyone that thinks Rankin looks small, they can drive by Amazon, which doesn't look huge either, but it's more than twice the size. So. And that is probably the biggest building in town.
Really did look small.
And one other thing, it was exciting last night. Those of us that are not lucky enough and can't afford to live in Ashland, we live in Columbia. We were able to get roll cards passed last night. So I'm glad that happened last night. And I don't know how many people watched this. Everybody debating over not wanting more roll cards. So
It's been what, they had trash bags for how many years?
ever since its inception, I think.
It's still not a way to use it though.
It's not the way to use it, but I was part of getting the signatures for the petitions, and that was a 2-year process. So.
Part of the problem is they have to outfit their trucks.
That's what they say. I mean, they don't have to.
Yeah, it doesn't have an arm.
And if you're looking for a job, they're hiring someone full-time to teach people how to use roll cards.
That was a discussion today.
What's the pay like?
A couple of us, are considering a
Put your
consulting
trash
firm.
in, you roll it to the curb.
See, she knows.
Well, it sounds like you're qualified.
There you go.
There was some sort of song, and you shake it all without.
And you wheel it on out. In another town that rhymes with Sedalia, they want me to start prosecuting people for not bringing their cans back in quickly enough.
Yeah,
That was one of the arguments.
Oh, I'm sure, it's a big deal.
Yes.
and it will, I mean, we can go on and on, but they will interfere with your mail too sometimes if they.
And traffic and.
Anyway,
Applause.
yay, good work, congratulations.
Any other questions?
I don't think so, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Alderman report. Alderman Lewis,
No report.
Alderman Plank.
Yes, I have one thing. Just a suggestion, I don't know how to go about doing it, how to organize it, but, there's, if we could put together some type of a quick strike task force or something, where when there's a complaint about trash along a roadway or something, or a street, if we had a group of 10, like volunteers or something that could, within a day of a complaint, head out to a street and pick up trash somewhere. Many hands make light work. So if there's a way we could do that, that would be awesome. Just a suggestion. I think would work well. I don't know how to do it, or who to talk to, maybe Izzy.
Probably community development director.
I don't remember getting any complaints in my time here about trash on unless it's along 63, which is MoDOT's.
Specifically the roundabout down by the new break time.
Yes.
Some of those yellow poles right there, and then off into the grass, kind of around the corner there, by the rental supply.
Well, James keeps running over those, so we can stop that.
I just can't help myself.
Alderman Booker,
No.
Alderman Wilson. No. Alderman Bell.
Talking to a lot of people about trash and recycling.
The same as Alderman Bell, we've had some recycling,
Issues.
emails
Noise.
and stuff, which I forwarded on to Kyle, so that they're aware of the communication. But that's it.
Moving on to general comments by the public. please state your name and address.
Well, I have a different address than where I live, but I do own property. My name's Nancy Langer. My husband and I own property on the corner of Liberty Lane and Allegiance. My home address is 5120 East Christian School Road, Hartsburg. My husband and I just became aware today about the proposed sidewalk project along Liberty Lane. We're concerned about the water runoff. There's a large ditch there now. Concerned about the water runoff on our vacant lot, which just lies south of Liberty Lane. And then we own a house right next to that vacant lot and everything. So just wondering what, and it may be a little premature at this point, but just wondering about making sure that our property is not flooded if a sidewalk gets built along there. Right now, like I said, the water runs off in the ditch primarily. If that's where the sidewalk's going to be, then what is the plan for the water runoff so that our property is not damaged?
So the board just approved the engineering contract, so we haven't started any design. If you could leave contact info with James, he's gonna be the project manager on behalf of the city as we start to engage with that engineer. That'd be the opportune time to have those discussions with us and with the engineer.
Okay, happy
And
with
Nancy, your property's to the north of Liberty Lane, right?
No, to the south of Liberty.
Right
I
where
used
the
to own
planter
property
is.
north of Liberty, do
Okay.
not anymore own property south of Liberty.
To the west of Allegiance?
So you're talking the
It's
southeast
the
corner of Liberty?
It's the corner of Liberty Lane and Allegiance.
Where the planter box is there at the entrance.
Oh,
of the
okay.
empty lot.
There's an open lot and then a
There's an
house.
open lot and then a house. Be happy to talk with him.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other general comments? None. Alright. Can I get a motion to go to a closed session?
So moved.
You have to say it, the section out loud.
Yeah, you're supposed to read it into the record.
Alright, can I get a motion to go to closed session on legal action, cause of legal action of litigation involving a public government body and confidential or privileged communication between public government body and or its representatives and its attorney.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I like this. I like it. No, I'm fine with that.
Oh,
You are good.
All right, we're back in the open session and we have nothing to report from closed session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.